Hello, are we live? We're live. Oh, welcome everyone. It's great. Everything's graded on a curve in 2020. Welcome to the PMG Fly Fest 2020 Black Muslim Narrative panel. I'm Janina, and this is Nia, my co-host. We're so excited that everybody out there is with us today.
Welcome. I'm so excited. We're going to start off our panel with a special award, Harmon Dixon Trailblazer Award. And this is our second year for giving this award. It's inspired by my two heroes, the two people who raised me, my grandfather, Nathaniel Dixon, who was a trailblazer. He was one of the first Black firefighters in Baltimore City. And my mother, Kadria, she's a trailblazer in her own right. She's the first person in her side of the family to seek out and become Muslim. And so that's where the inspiration came from. And we're honoring Najla Mutman as a trailblazer in the industry, as a Black Muslim woman, just making a path for us and for other upcoming Black Muslim filmmakers to find their place in Hollywood and get their stories made. So without further ado, I would like to bring on Malika A. Shabazz. She will be honoring Najla today. Oh, unfortunately, Malika is having a few technical difficulties, but she will be jumping on. So my middle name is Malika. I will take her place. I will say this. The biggest reason why I believe Najla is a trailblazer, the trailblazer for this year, is her push to make sure that her stories are told authentically. If you are not familiar with Jinn, get familiar. It's her feature film right now on Amazon Prime. And as a Black Muslim woman in the industry, she inspires me. So without further ado, Najla Mutman, our trailblazer this year.
Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for this award. Thank you, Nia. Thank you to this festival. This really means so much to me to receive this honor today. And I have it here. I'm going to show it here. It's really beautiful. And it just really makes me feel amazing. I just want to say that this is really special to me at this time because through this pandemic, it has been really difficult for so many people. But for me, I've had a really hard time adjusting to life during the pandemic. And I was at a point where I was thinking about walking away from directing and filmmaking due to a lot of the struggles and rejection and just a lot of the struggles that we endure as Black women filmmakers, as Muslim filmmakers. And recently I had the opportunity to go back, direct an episode of a TV show and then shoot a short film after that and kind of reunite it with the love that I have for this craft. And to know that my film Jinn is still alive in the hearts and minds of people years after it was made just really lets me know that the work that we do as artists is important and is needed in this time. So receiving this award and this recognition from you, it just warms my heart because I was really so close to just giving up. And I just wanted to be honest about that because I think as artists, sometimes we don't really get to see that side, but it's really important for me to be open with people and just really let you know that this means so much to me. Thank you for holding up Jinn, telling a story about a Black Muslim girl in her life, her identity, her sexuality, her family was something that was so important to me since I was a young girl writing poetry in the Bay Area. So this is, a dream fulfilled to see people still talking about this film after years. So thank you so much. And this means so much. Thank you. for this award.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Thank you. It's like you said, Jen is very much needed for those young girls who are like you right now, writing poetry. And you did that. So alhamdulillah. Awesome.
All right, I think we can bring on all of our panelists. And I have the honor of reading some of their bios to you. Every single person here is a badass. I mean, the number of awards that everyone has on their shelves is extraordinary and merited. All right, let's start. So, of course, you've just met Najla Momin. She was named one of the 25 new faces of independent film by Filmmaker magazine. You just have to sit there while I talk about you. Sorry. Her filmmaking and screenwriting has been supported by Sundance, IFP, Film Independent, and the Princess Grace Foundation. Her film, Jinn, premiered at and won a special jury recognition award for screenwriting at South by Southwest 2018. And since then, as she said, she's directed an episode of both Queen Sugar and Insecure, and she's been in the writer's room working on the Blind Spotting television show, which it's near and dear to my heart.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God. Blind Spotting. Sorry. I just like made that connection.
Yeah. So everybody's going to be able to see that on Stars very, very soon. There's some exciting things happening. Next up, we have Amatus Sami Karim Ali. She is an award-winning producer, musician, actress, and filmmaker. She was most recently nominated for a Drama Desk Award for her work as a composer of The Homecoming Queen. She's also an executive producer of the newly released documentary, We Are the Dream, the Kids of the Oakland MLK Oratorical Fest. And you can also see her in The Last Two Lovers at the End of the World. Next, we have Sultan Sharif. He is a transmedia activist, filmmaker, educator, and social entrepreneur. His interests lies at the intersection of art, business, and community impact. Bilal's Stand, which he wrote and directed, premiered at Sundance. He also co-produced the film Destined and is the creator and showrunner for the Black public media program Street Cred. Next, we have Kasim Basir. He is a writer and director. His first feature film, all of the awards, guys, just like too many to even mention. But his first film, Muslim, was nominated for an NAACP Image Award. And his film, Destined, has won 9 awards. And last but not least, do we have her? Is she back? Is she back? Do we got her? Malika A. Shabazz. She wrote and directed and produced her first narrative short film, Consternation, in 2018. And she has also directed and produced 2 short documentaries, The Vortex and Transplants, and is currently in pre-production for her next short film, Amethyst. This is your panel. Just a bunch of stars.
Awesome. Awesome. This is beautiful. I'm just so honored to be in the company of such talented Black Muslim people, and you guys just don't know. Like, I'm from afar, just like in awe and just sending out love every single time I see anything you guys work on. And so, yes, this is a wonderful way for us to come together. Thank you.
Let's get to some questions. Also, before we begin, I'd just like to remind everybody who is watching at home, you can send us questions in the chat. And if when we have time, we will be asking them for you.
Awesome. Okay, so why don't we jump right in, because the purpose of this panel is to get the conversation started, but also involve our audience in like actually coming up with some solutions. And what are we here for? We're here for storytelling. And as Muslims, we live with purpose and we practice acting with intention. So the first question is about purpose. Why? Why did you choose film and television? Why storytelling? Who'd like to go first?
I can go. So first of all, thanks for having me. Um, uh, I appreciate your speech, Najla. And I think it kind of sets the groundwork for us to all sort of dig deep in this, because I think with this whole thing, um, I think we all have had a year. If you care, if you're actually trying to do something about all this, it really is unprecedented what happened in this country, in this world. No generation in the last 100 years has been through anything like this. And to try to do stuff, you know, for the movement, whatever your version of that is, it can be a lot. So like, I appreciate that you started that way, because it kind of like made me realize that I need to dig deep too, and I hope you have that kind of conversation today, because I think at the end of this year, a lot of people are looking for that. In that way, you grow up in a country where you never see yourself on screen. You're like, all right, well, if no one else is going to do it, then I probably should, right? And if this is the medium that I'm going to speak to the world in, I was going to be a lawyer at one point in my life. I was on my way to take the LSAT when my whole life kind of changed. But when I finally chose this medium, it's like, all right, I have to consider this life I've lived even before me, and all of the images that have been put out there about people like me, but not all of the facets of me. I think at the time I made my film, Sultan's movie was the only one that had a Black Muslim person at the core of it, a Black Muslim guy at the core of it. And so, that for me was a big reason I got into it. I thought, just based on the life that I live and what I had seen so far, the way I could have the biggest impact in this world is by saying something that matters, and through this medium. And I love doing it.
That's important too. Absolutely. Sultan, you want to piggyback on that? Because Bilal Stand was a big inspiration for me too. The fact that I saw the movie.
I was just muted. Assalamualaikum. Yeah, thank you for having me as well. And I second what Qasim said. He texted me, like, because we haven't talked in probably the longest we've gone without talking in a really long time. And I was like, yeah, I've been a depressed hermit the last couple of months. I've been hiding from the world. So thank you. I want to second Najla. Thank you for what you said. And congratulations on the award. For me, it was.
Sultan, can you just, before you start, because I got to say this, because like last time, y'all remember the summer we had, the summer of movements bigger than anything in the history of this country. Sultan was out there in the heart of it. And, some of the last times we spoke, I was trying to get him bailed out of jail for getting arrested and tear gas and hit with rubber bullets this summer, So like that was the kind of those were the kind of conversations we were having. And, he kind of like went to take care of himself. And now, we're seeing each other again after like a few months. So it's a lot. Anyway, I just had to give context to that.
No, it's a lot for me. And actually, like all of this Black woman Muslim energy is a unique thing, even in because I'm a PhD student right now, right? So we study critical race theory, we study Black feminism, queer Black feminism. I'm reading all of the bell hooks, I'm reading all of these things, and there's an element of it, and this might not be answering the question, but it'll detour into the question. I feel like there's an element deeper than or not deeper than, but in addition to what Qasim was saying about not seeing yourself, like you almost don't see your realities, right? Like I grew up, going to Muslim school. Me and Malika were in school since 6th, 7th grade at LA Class in Detroit. And then even just like the women that raised us, right? Like my mother and Qasim's mother, who's my second mother, we were shown a world, and we were shown people who defied like the norm in so many ways. And in retrospect, I think it raised our standards for what people could be like, what mothers could be like, what women could be like, what fathers could be like. And so, but for us, that was kind of normal. Like it was kind of normal for a bunch of like really educated Black Muslim people to be together all the time. Like we were raised in this blessed bubble, I think, of Muslim Detroit. And then you go out into the world and you don't see any reflection of the realities that you, and the almost like the energy, right? Not just necessarily the representation, but like on another plane, what that representation means. You know, how a stern Muslim, one of Sister Sherry or one of our teachers, like growing up, could like say, give you a look and it could stop you, but it was like there was honor that was mixed with like, don't F with me. I've been through too much for this. Like there were all of these things that could be multifaceted that would be just one look, you know, and then it could haunt you, you know. And then you go into the world and it's like that doesn't exist anywhere, and you need that a lot. So for me, I think it was trying to get at even with Bilal stand and name, right? Bilal, you know, we were called Bilalian a lot, right? You know, and we were taught to have pride in Bilal, and I didn't see Bilal anywhere in the world. And so Bilal's stand was really like even a name. It was like I'm taking a stand for like our existence, and almost this attempt to, I feel like, not erase a lot of what we were raised with, you know, and this quality of the world that we knew was possible. And so yeah, so Bilal Stan was my jump into that, but it was really just about yeah, just trying to protect something that was really important, I feel like.
Everyone, feel free to jump in, because this is where we tell everyone why we chose film and television to tell our stories.
Thank you, Nia, for inviting me, and Najla, congratulations on everything, and sharing your story and what's happening for you currently. I'm sure we all can relate. I have definitely been on the fringes of so many different concentric circles, and I guess, you know, in true artist fashion, you keep going, keep pushing. So I've definitely seen your faces from years ago and then now, you know, present. And I think as far as the deeper purpose, you know, being an African-American, originally from Chicago, I have always, and the generation that I'm from, I have always known and seen that Black African-American Muslims are a part of the fabric of this country. And through different waves of politics, events of the world, all of these other things. And then also within our own culture, how we even view film and television and media, and how we support our own communities and the different shifts that have happened. I just feel like this is it's a wild time on a lot of different levels. And I'm very thankful that there are some open windows right now for artists to keep pushing and do it for the love, or do it because it's necessary, do it for whatever reasons that you're called to. And because especially now with COVID, at least in my own personal mosque, I'm an Ahmadi Muslim, we've lost so many. And it is like a time for, if you're present and awake, to tell stories and to capture the stories of the people that are still here, and then also of the imprints that we've personally lived also. Hopefully with joy, and then also, yeah.
I feel that. And I'm glad that you brought up your community, because I want people out there to know that being a Black Muslim in America is not a monolith. And even within the Black Muslim community, there are so many different diverse communities within communities. And I personally, I didn't know much about the Ahmadi community until we met. And that's how I was introduced, and I learned, and we talked, and I learned your stories, and I found out that we have similar experiences, even though I grew up in Baltimore in a Black Muslim community, and I went to Sister Clara Muhammad School, what they call a WD Muhammad Mosque. But we still have very similar experiences, and our stories were still very similar, even though you're from a different community. And I loved that. Najla? Malika?
Hey. Oh. Yeah, just echoing everything that has been said. I grew up, I read a lot of fiction. I loved reading novels and writing poetry when I was growing up in the Bay, contemporary Black fiction, and the kind of texture and richness of those stories, the complexity, the flaws, all of that character development that I experienced in those books. That's what I wanted to do actually initially, is like tell epic stories about people that looked like me and that were a part of my community and my extended family, which I just didn't see in a lot of the media that was available to me. So that's really where my love of storytelling came from, was from reading books, writing poems, and wanting to bring the richness of those stories into a visual form. Because I got to see Malcolm X at Grand Lake Theater in Oakland when I was very young, and I saw how the audience was responding to the movie, and I just was like, I want to make something that has people respond that way to it. So it was really about those early introductions to different forms of art and wanting to like bring my experience into those forms in some way. So.
I really want to say that I find so many parallels because my origin story started with books, and that visual storytelling style, believe it or not, at age 3, I was thoroughly impressed by John Steptoe. And if you're familiar with Black children's literature, John Steptoe not only wrote, but he also painted and illustrated other books, most famously Movaro's Beautiful Daughters. But the book that really did it for me was Stevie. And seeing a story about a Black family and just being regular, you know, I'm a child of the 70s, so that was not something like common. So that to me was my origin, books, and reading Alice Walker at age 11, which I probably shouldn't have read The Color Purple that early. But, you know, Alice Walker and Giovanni, right? Those were my inspirations. So I had to tell stories because they paved the way for us little Black girls to tell our stories. And why not tell the Black Muslim story? That leads into our second question about identity. How does your identity as a Black Muslim woman or man inform your work? The story itself, the process of creating the project, getting your project to audiences, like the whole timeline. How does your identity inform that?
Who would like to take it? Malika, go for it.
Sorry, my mouse was starting to die. I'm having all the technical issues today.
Don't
I don't know what's
worry.
going on. Yeah, I kind of slipped out of that last question though.
Come on.
No, but
Not this one. You're in this one now. Go for it.
It influences everything because it is me. So, you know, my identity, I can't separate my identity from myself because then I am no longer myself. And so the way whether I'm communicating in a meeting or writing a story or talking to someone else is always informed by, you know, how I see myself and how I see my worth. You know, it's not something like I'm just going to turn this little Black Muslim thing off for right now, because then I'm not being honest with myself. If I'm not being honest with myself, then I can't be honest with my project. And that's disrespectful to everyone who is taking their time out to be included with this project. Furthermore, understanding that it's not just about me. Like, there is a whole generation of young Black Muslims who have also been born and raised Muslim, and they have a generation ahead of them. Well, they're probably a generation that has the largest group because there are generations ahead of me that were born Muslim, but a lot of our parents were converts. And so when we were teenagers, it was like, we don't know our parents don't know about being Black Muslim teenagers, but now we have this whole generation that can point at someone else and say, oh, well, they know what it's like, or we can at least turn back to them and say, I feel you. Mind you, we didn't have this monster that is social media at the time, so that's a whole another thing. However, there is a sense of them being able to see us and to see that in a society where even though diversity is popping, there's still a void of diverse images of Black Muslims. So for them to either see us on the screen in a narrative fashion or see us in the screen as the storytellers of the fashion, I think that's really important for not only strengthening our identity, but affirming the identities of those coming before us.
Yeah.
I like to say that this next generation is going to be like, if we've done our job, I like to say the next generation is going to be like, why y'all so mad? Why are you like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
Then we know if they look at us like we're so extra, that means that we have done our job fighting to normalize all of our stories. I often say, and I have this is, by the way, a grand manipulation that I'm just telling the world a secret because we're on a public platform here. But sometimes as an actor, I'll be hired for something and I'm brown, surprise. And, I'll enter the equation and I'll say to the showrunners, writers, producers, etc. I know you guys would never do this, but it's such a strange thing that happens where, the second my character gets put on the screen, we immediately talk about what kind of brown she is, what her background is. We have to identify her otherness immediately. It's so weird, right? You would never do that. And then I say, otherizing someone is the same thing as sexualizing a female character the second you put her on screen. We're so far past that, right? You would never do that anymore. Understand it's the same thing. You are otherizing a person. You make them not part of the narrative, just in the margin. And it's our job to just make sure we don't do that and fight for normalcy so the next generation can roll their eyes at us.
We have to center our narratives. That's like you said, we have to put us at the center of our narratives, not in the margins. And like Malika said, our identity is who we are, and so it's part of the story. How has that informed your work, Amatus? How much?
It's an interesting time right now, I think, just within the Muslim community in America, and how I think there's, and also between different generations, where opening up other conversations of inclusion, there's an opportunity for that right now, and just a necessary push for all of us to do that, just so that we can have audience for each other and relearn, and really recalibrate support. And I specifically want to speak to that, within being African Americans in this country, in that has been a challenge, just like everyone else has their different challenges, but we also need to, it's just if you have the one label of, oh, I'm just Black in America, you have all the different systemic issues that are, cyclical and exist within that. And then on top of that, making the most attractive, beautiful stories that just people want to tap into. And so I think that is, I hope and pray everyone has more time for that. Nigella, I know you're doing it. I've read, but really to make their most beautiful stories, so that really in this year and next, more things can be embraced, not just because they're filling a diversity void, but because the beauty speaks for itself. And I think that is what I am leading 2021 in right now, you know.
Feel free to jump in, Qasim, Sultan.
Because that's the only way, and off of what you said, that any of this talk is going to matter, right? Like if it's not just saying diversity for diversity's sake, but if this is actually a long-lasting, like real change kind of moment, you know? And it seems like it, you know. We'll see, but it's certainly encouraging, I would say, just to see like how a lot of people have stepped up, a lot of companies, this business, you know, their appetite for different stories that, you know, even 4 years ago they would have been like, get the hell out of here, you know. But now it's like, what do you got? And so I'm just following up with what you said, Amatus, and agreeing that like, because I look at this movement, man, it's like it's so different than before, you know, like with the civil rights or something, where it was probably like now it's in so many different areas, you know, whether it's marching or arts and social media, you know, it's everywhere. But I'm seeing it everywhere. When I watch college, I love watching college football. My Saturdays are like, don't even talk to me, you know. And I'm looking at these teams, and I'm like, yo, that dude's name is what did it say? That dude's name is Peace. Oh, that's cool. And then his teammate on the back of his jersey was like, his name is Inclusion. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? This is what kind of team is this? Then I realized like all the players, instead of their names, they have like Black Lives Matter, like peace, and you know, so I'm just the way I'm seeing it everywhere, and to potentially be a part of it, you know. I have a show that I'm working on to get out as well, and it's called Mecca, you know. So it's like, who the hell would have made a show called Mecca about a Black Muslim family in Detroit, you know, just a couple years ago. So you know, it's I'm looking forward to seeing how this changes the whole.
I would love to know from you all, you know, you are scrappy, independent artists who will make things whether people support you or not. That is why you're here, right? But you've also managed to make pieces of work that are maybe more mainstream. You've worked with major networks and distributors like OWN and HBO and Lionsgate. And I would just love to know what you've learned in the process of working with them that maybe you could impart to another filmmaker or another creative who has to adjust to make things translate within a corporate infrastructure.
Yeah, I would like to speak to that. I think the reason why I was given the opportunities to work in television, to write in television and direct, is because of my independent voice. And I did not adjust that in order to enter those spaces. And that's why I was welcomed into the space, because of the singular kind of voice I had and the approach. And for me, coming from a kind of guerrilla filmmaking background where I would get it done no matter what, I make my day, I know how to make a feature in 18 days. That's very attractive to a TV world where you're always trying to make your day, and you really come in with that sense of purpose about what you're doing. For me, you know, the first writer's room that I was in was because of Jen, because the showrunner saw Jen at a screening and said, I want that voice in my room. So I didn't have to like change up. I just came as I was, and I brought my voice and how I see the world. And that has amplified, you know, that really kind of helped those TV environments. But I think it's important to know what you do well, and know what you're passionate about, and then bring that into the mainstream, you know, world. And that's really what is gonna, you know, what people will remember you by and what people will want you to do. And it can be hard because sometimes I feel like what I do and how I write and the stories I want to tell aren't really welcome sometimes, but I know that I'm just never going to stop telling these stories. So something's going to, it's going to work out somehow. But I'm not going to abandon my stories in any way.
So that what you said about Janina, what you said about whether people support it or not, I actually wouldn't do it if no one supported it. Like, to be honest, I couldn't. I just couldn't. It just wouldn't. There are people in this town. He said his roommate who he would surf all the time, and I'm like, where? How does this dude get money? How does he survive? This white guy, and one time he called me. He's like, "Hey man, can you go in my room and grab this and this and this for me and read off some on his mail or something?" He was somewhere and needed it. I went in there and there was a check from Pops for like 3 racks or 4,000. It's just like, and it was like September or something like that. So I'm like, oh, so he gets money every month to kind of handle his life. And you realize in this town there are people who can do that and just sort of like make stuff and not worry about anything. Hey Dad, I need another 10 grand. I gotta move or whatever. When you come from a background where you just constantly had to work for everything, if I consider like the idea of no one supporting my work, it's like, well, maybe I need to be doing something else, or maybe I need to really kind of like look at the stuff I am doing, because there's just, there is that kind of art, but that's not the kind I make. You gotta consider an audience, you gotta consider who you're speaking to. That's why we do this. It wouldn't, if no one saw your film, it wouldn't even matter, and to the end of this kind of using the scrappy thing, the independent thing, when you really look at it in the context of creating your own, defining yourself, not letting this industry define you. Like, just they can't define you. They cannot know what it means to have to go through the kind of lives that we have. And when you go in those rooms, these offices, 99%, 95% of the time, the person you're sitting across from, you've done 10 times more than them. They like probably went to college, got an assistant job somewhere, and now they're sitting in front of you making a choice on you. But the moment you say, like, you have this knowing of like all that stuff I went through in life, like whether it was in the hood, whether it was with my family, whether it was struggling, all that has contributed to me. Those aren't like deficiencies, right? These aren't like, oh, I was poor. Like, and that means you're resourceful, that you are here. You were poor and you're here living in LA for more than a year. Like, come on, that in itself. These are things that once you begin to define yourself and not let this business define you and say, oh, well, you've done a couple of indies, that's cute. Like, no, we were in Detroit in the middle of the winter shooting for 20 days and we made a movie and we had company moves and it's the coldest winter on record and it snowed every day. So don't tell me, you know what I mean? And we had to fight every second for every cent. And you had to convince actors to work for less than what they're worth. You have to convince a DP that's prolific to come in and do your film when they're worried about their safety in a city that they've never been to before, right? So you've done that. In the moment you can realize how powerful that is and convert this idea that the business says, oh, there's a new up and coming actor, like, get out of here, man. To me, I'm like, that's not who I am. This is who I am. You may not know yet, but you will.
That's so important, knowing yourself. And just to piggyback off of that and to add to what Najla was saying, because I find myself like agreeing with you both, because it's like, I remember being in the room and pitching HBO and they loved the story and they were like, this is so great. But is it a Black story or a Muslim story? And I had to explain that it's all of that, and you have to be confident and knowing yourself enough so that when you do go in those rooms, there's no way that they can tell you that you can't get your story made. Because like Janina said, I was scrappy and I took that story and, even though they loved it, they passed. So I made it and now it's called The Trap. And it's a series that my whole community got to watch. And even if nobody said this was great, I felt accomplished by that because it was a story that I knew needed to be told. And so it's kind of like my foot is in both worlds. Like, I agree with you, Qasim. I agree with you, Najla. It's like you got to find your place and you've got to stake your claim.
For me, I find myself thinking about one Cosm triggered me with those winter stories. That was horrible. I was in charge of location moves and it was a nightmare. But I think about this larger thing, right? Like I'm sure many of you have traveled, in other countries, and like a lot of times they don't know what we are. Like I got stopped in customs in Egypt because they were trying to understand why my name is Sultan Sharif, but I don't have like another non-American passport. So I like literally have to go into this, and it happens all the time in Ubers. Sultan, do you know what your name means? And then you have to do this like, oh, do I have to have this conversation with this Uber driver right now? So then I found I've got you have like different raps depending on what energy you're into at the moment. So that sometimes I'll just start with like, have you heard of Malcolm X? Like even to the customs guy in Egypt, I was like, how can I explain? Do you know Malcolm X? Okay, you have heard of Malcolm X. Okay, and then like I try to work back through with like, well, those people had kids, and then their kids went to schools, and then like that, and then sometimes they like, oh, okay, I can. You ever heard of Muhammad Ali? Okay, if he has a child. Like, and then, like, because sometimes they'll be looking at you skeptical, like you're lying to them or something. Like, you just stole that name from somewhere. And so for me, and having told that story so many times, trying to almost like arguing to like justify that you have a authentic existence, then I feel like in a way it makes you a kind of steward of a narrative, not just in a sort of story sense, but like we are. Part of the reason I could go to those places is because they can name a Muhammad Ali or they can name a Malcolm X, but then it never occurs to them that like there's this whole world of people that grew out of those names that are like locked in black and white images of the 50s kind of. And I feel like I think Malika was saying this earlier about the generation after us. I feel like this level of stewardship, right, where you're ensuring you have to be scrappy, to go back to that point, because scrappiness is an element of survival, right? It's a survival technique. It's an evolutionary trait of the survivors, just like a finch's beak or something. If you go into dominant and recessive alleles or whatever, like we've retained these survival traits because we had to, and the people who didn't, they kind of got evolved out of the conversation. So we're like fighting to stay survival of the fittest, even sometimes within our own selves, right? As a type of steward of these traits, right? And keeping them in the sort of genetic pool, so that they don't disappear out, because they are really. I can take a metaphor and like really run with. They are really important narratives, right? And so yeah, for me, I'm actually struggling lately, not to turn it a little bit. I almost want to punt this back out to the rest of the group. Like lately, I feel like that after the crazy summer I've had, I've always was so motivated by this like duty of, and if you have parents like in our communities, I'm sure with all of you, like this duty you have, right? It's almost like I think any artist of color is a soldier in a narrative, right? But like I'm trying to reconnect, and I'm curious how you guys find balance, because it's the constant thing of like balance to the duty that you might feel, even the duty to a story. Like I'm not gonna let this baby get taken away, right? But then also like the sort of, I feel like a truer, or not truer, but maybe like purely creative inspiration of just like of a story, of a moment, of a aesthetic that you want to capture that isn't perhaps connected to this like duty or identity politics or that soldier side. And so I'm curious. I find myself in this moment right now like struggling with that a lot, because I feel like the duty motivation isn't enough, and I need to like tap into, or it's run its course. And I think to evolve to a higher art form, I need to make from a different place that's more rooted in like love and beauty and a pure appreciation or gratefulness of form. And so I'm curious where you guys are in that process, or how do you, especially like I have privilege as a cis male, right, able-bodied, I'm a large Black man at that, right, so I can navigate spaces very easily. But I'm curious as to how, especially the women, how do you guys keep it pure? I don't know.
I really relate to what Nigella said in the beginning when she accepted her award. And I think for me, submission has been a big it continues to get deeper and deeper, but on a very real level, at least when it is aligned with the work, like I said, I kind of was away for a little bit, all these other things, but it's just really interesting. It's almost like we all have these pockets of expectation and blessings and prayers and experiences that happen, and then it aligns in whatever way that it does. And so clearly people of color, Black people, are going through the Molotov cocktail of experiences since George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, COVID, the whole thing. And at least for me, which in my friend circle and my artist circle, at this point, I think I'm past I'm trying to be successful. I'm trying to, like it's beyond that for me. I'm a mother, right, as well. But the work that I've done in the past just keeps pushing me into these different situations. Like, I literally have a terabyte of footage from a gun violence doc that someone hit me up and was like, hey, I'm going to give you this money now. Can we finish? Like whatever your workflow is, whatever your alignment is, you know what I mean? I think that's where women maybe more do self-care in a certain way, because it takes them, or if you're just an artist in general, it takes a certain amount of stillness and sensitivity in order to be able to, capture the vision and stories that you want to reflect back. But I don't know. I would just say the word submission is a very big metaphor, and you don't know the timing of certain things, but like keeping your faith and hope.
I feel that.
I would say, Sultan, it's an evolution, man. It's you are at different places, and you think, I think you live a life of, or at least I'll speak from myself, there's this period where I moved to New York, I have nothing, and I'm like a starving artist. I'm creating from that place. There was a period of I used to drink when I wrote. Like, I wouldn't go near that again now. Like I would think that, oh, that brings up something else in me. Like, but that was where I was at that time, and that's what I thought helped me create, which was, I guess, that's being like straight up with y'all, right? Like, so I think this evolution of how you create and what is your why now? Like, my why before may have been like, oh, I got to make it through New York because otherwise I'm gonna go home. Like, I just want to make it to the point where I don't have to go back to Detroit. And it's like, that is, maybe I'm coming from a scarcity mindset, maybe I'm coming from a survival mindset. And then you get into this place where like, I'm a father now, and it's, and I don't necessarily create from those places anymore, but because of the work I've done in my evolution, and because of, I think, the transformative impact of that work, and by work I mean literal self everyday work. Like this, what we are up against in this business is like no other business. It just, the way it breaks you down, and the rejection that you receive, and the kind of the way people act. If someone tells you in regular life, in almost any other profession, if someone tells you they're going to do something, most of the time they do it. Like, if someone tells you they're going to invest in something, you're like, yeah, okay, and it happens. But in this business, people will just disappear forever. Like, after telling you they're going to pay for your movie, like, and you will set up a thing, you will hire people, and they will be gone, and they won't answer your phone, you'll be up for a big job, and then you'll just see on the trades that somebody else got it. No one will even tell you that they got it. Like, these things, we're not like, I don't even think emotionally we have caught up to what this does to us. So in this way, I think the work, the interior work, is so necessary to be able to just walk the steps in this business. And I think the more of it you do, the more you'll be able to recognize your transformation and begin to say, like, I'm creating from this place now. Because my place of creating now, it doesn't live in scarcity. It doesn't live in, different shifts of mindset, whether it's smoking or drinking or whatever. It lives in saying, I want to be as clear. I want to get the best sleep I can. I write in the mornings now. I'm not up late at night until 3 because I want to sleep. I ride my bicycle down by the ocean and I clear my head. Like, this is where I write from now. And from that comes deeper stories. And my memory and the ideas that come to me, they're different ones. And I look back on some of my other work and be like, I'd probably do 100 things different on my first movie. I do 50 things different on that second one. And hopefully that with each one I can evolve and with each one become better than the last.
This is great. This is so beautiful. Great advice for storytellers in our communities right now, at any stage of proficiency, whether, you're just starting out or you've been at it for a while. And one of our she's our performer this year, Amira Unplugged, and she has a poem she's reciting about creating her poem is just for the sake of joy. Just instead of coming from pain, it's coming from joy. Can I just put some metaphors in there just for the fun of it? And what can we tell these storytellers so that they can best serve their audience, but also best serve themselves without sacrificing that creativity? And Kasim, you started off with what you said, which was so poignant. I would love it if you guys could add to that.
Well, let me finish, because, and also with what you said, and to answer your question, like, there's sometimes maybe a little shift to it. Like, because of all the time at home with COVID, I've finally gotten to write some stuff I've been thinking about for a while. Some spec. It becomes harder to write a spec script when you're out working and stuff like that, and you're getting hired onto things. And so for example, I wrote a comedy, right? Because I just have been feeling this weight of the world, and I realized, like, I don't know if it's gonna work. It might be terrible. I don't know. We'll see, but I wrote 2 screenplays. Like, I have 2 more movies now and one of them's a comedy, and it's like, okay, that's how I'm going to deal with this. I think next year people are going to want to laugh. I think people are just going to want to just let go, and I'm using real things that happened this year, but hopefully we can, because I don't know. I think that's one way. So anyway, I'm talking too much.
No. Yeah, this
Can
is
I add to that?
You need to hear it. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a great discussion, but I just wanted to add that for me, usually how I come to creating and writing is from a place of truth and honesty. I try to tell the truth about my characters, about myself. I've been writing poetry for a lot of my life. So that was a place where there's like no judgment. I don't come into character development or storytelling judging myself or judging characters. I want to see so deeply into the character and into myself. And so that's really what my process was with writing Jinn and writing. I have another script called Noor, which is like a Muslim love story, where I don't go in saying, oh, I'm going to create this story, this Black Muslim story, and it's going to satisfy everybody. And this is for this person. And I'm talking about humanity. And I'm really just trying to explore a person. And within that person, they are Muslim and they come from that community. But I'm not trying to write to expectations. I'm just writing to the truth and honesty of who that person is, complete with their flaws and with their strengths and whoever they are. So I just think coming to writing in that way has really served me and helped me to be able to create some of the best work that I have. So.
That's awesome. So let's piggyback off of that. What are some of the Black Muslim stories that you want to tell, or that you want to see other Black Muslim creatives tell that you haven't seen yet?
I'll go first. So I'm a nerd, all that, yeah. So it's not about necessarily seeing. Okay, so anyone knows with sci-fi characters are oftentimes based on something that is real, but it's called something different. So you'll have this race may be the upper class and this race is the lower class, but in the upper class, you see different skin tones, but you know what they are and you know what the lower class is. So I would love to see a character in some sort of sci-fi fantasy who may not be explicitly called Muslim, but you know what their character is based on, and you know what the sister looked like. And I want to see the sister like this. I'm trying not to curse, but I want to see her like laying it off. I want to see her just like knocking people back, like, because I want to see her like fight for real. Like, that's why people are so pissed with the portrayal of Storm so currently, because she didn't do nothing but like this when we know like she can fight. So I want to see images not only of course I would love to see like more comedic images, but I definitely want to see like a Black Muslim girl inspired
Sci-fi
character in a film, and like have that type of, whether it's the spiritual essence of Islam that is written into her character. So sure, she's not called Muslim because on this planet, in this universe, the concept of Islam doesn't exist because it's his Tatooine or whatever, but we know what she's based off of. So when someone sees her, they can be like, oh, that looked like my mama, something like that.
So I just with the story, finding connection with the characters, even though it's science fiction, it is possible to see your Islam in a sci-fi story. So that sounds dope.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to take a question really quickly from the audience before we wrap up. So Nyla Hyder says she would just like to know if there is a specific place where new storytellers in this community can connect with others.
Yes. So this year I created through Mighty Networks a network called the BMG Fly Network. And you can sign in at bmgfly.mn.co and you can find out more. We are going to have a really big launch in 2021, but right now we're just like intimate and getting started. So please do go ahead and log in and check it out. And that way you'll find more like-minded creatives. And I want to close out on something really positive and hear what your favorite film is from everyone this year, because that's what we're here to do, is to tell stories. And I know you've been inspired by some. I will go first and say that Jingle Jangle was the thing for me this year. It really, like Najla, I was feeling you on your speech. Like I wanted to quit so many times, but when I watched Jingle Jangle, oh my God, I was remembering The Wiz, and I was like, this is why I need to stay. This is beautiful. What about you guys? What did it for you this year?
I loved a 40-year-old version. That is one of my favorite movies of the year. And I saw it at Sundance, so I saw it early, but I love that movie. It just makes me feel good. I love the humor, the love story, the black and white aesthetic. Rada is amazing. So that's one of my favorites.
Anybody else who've got?
I love that one too. I love The Farewell. There's a lot of good content right now. A lot of the Sundance picks, true. Also, this past year, it's like it exploded and then COVID. But yeah. Anyway,
I loved Black Box, which is a sci-fi piece.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I just saw a great doc called The Painter and the Thief. It's not necessarily from this year, but it's really, really, really well done.
You hear me typing it in.
It's like from, you should definitely check it out.
What about you, Kasim?
Goodness, I'm racking my brain to see what I don't remember what I watched this year. I've kind of been watching a lot more TV episodes than anything. But Fargo was, I'll say some TV. Fargo was great this year, man. With Chris Rock at the lead, I just was like, what in the world? Like I don't know if y'all saw it, he plays this gangster back in the 1950s, Chris Rock, and it was extremely, extremely well done. Incredibly well shot, very well acted. I was really impressed with Chris Rock, and so I don't have a movie, but that's something that really struck me.
Oh, if we're gonna talk TV, Lovecraft Country.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I May Destroy You literally did destroy me, but
yeah, that was a great, great. Wow. Oh, that's great.
There's so much. Okay, wait. We do have to wrap it up. I just want to say, I want to reiterate a recurring theme from this panel for anybody out there who's watching, and that is that all of your experiences are valid, and they make you more and more ready. And we hope you feel the confidence in that. You know, sometimes when you look at a resume as a filmmaker or as a performer, you just see these things that are qualifications, but all of that is more powerful than some resume line. So when you walk into a room, feel everything that you have lived, because you are overqualified. That's for almost every room that you walk into.
That's a show title.
Overqualified. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to thank everyone. And Mia, would you like to send us off?
Well, I just want to say thank you very much for all of you for participating. This was amazing, and I hope that there are creatives, Black Muslim girls and boys out there who are inspired by what we've been talking about today and create something beautiful, inspired by yourself and your own experiences. Center your own narrative.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I hope to see all of you.
Emily said it was Parasite for her. So I just wanted to throw that in there. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And as we end the panel, I want to let you all know BMG Fly Fest is going on all day today. If you haven't gotten your passes, talk to me offline. But go to seedandspark.com/BMG Fly Fest. Have a wonderful day.
Take care, everyone.